I found a post on Tumblr from the blog justbutch.tumblr.com. Her description says she is a GNC, gender nonconforming, lesbian, currently very disillusioned with the queer community, probably too old for this shit. Anyway, she wrote a post about butch experience, butch positivity, butch resilience, and I wanted to share it. I am not a butch lesbian. I am a lesbian. I am not butch. I'm not really gender nonconforming. I'm not feminine though either. I just am, whatever. Doesn't matter what I am. This post is about butches, and I'm going to share it here. The link to the original post, of course, will be in the description box. If you want to follow along with the text, I don't think I will be screenshotting and posting it throughout this video. So if you want to follow along with the text, then please click on the description and get the link out of there. So Just Butch received an anonymous message that says, "How and why do you keep going? I'm butch and plain exhausted. Lifelong intolerance and bullying of my being, then my only butch friends all transitioned, then this mess in LGBTQ everything. Now I get constantly they-them'd, and dating is shittier on top of it. COVID doesn't help, but I just think about offing myself because I don't see a point at all in existing. To me, butch lesbianism is a futile, diluted joke at this point. We're nothing meant to be sustainable. We're a mistake, nonsense." Just Butch replied, "Hi there. I'm really sorry that you are feeling so low. Things can be really tough sometimes, and like you say, the pandemic sure isn't helping. I know what you mean. It is hard to keep going when it feels like your way of existing seems fundamentally incompatible with people's worldview. Of course, butch lesbians have never been particularly well accepted in society, but the additional homophobia and marginalization of butch women within queer spaces is particularly depressing. And even in somewhat accepting spaces, it can just get plain lonely. It's not easy to feel so left behind. As for why and how I keep going, there are actually quite a few reasons. The main one is, there's more to life than gender. Don't get me wrong, both my sexuality and the shit I experienced due to being female matter to me, and not being able to talk about this completely openly with people and therefore never being really understood, even by people who matter to me, is actually quite painful. However, that doesn't erase the good things in my life. I get to pet cats and float in rivers. I get to spend time with people I like, less so now of course, but this is not forever. I keep my plants alive, or at least I try to. I try to be kind and to make the world a slightly better place. Sometimes when I feel a bit better, I make art. Sometimes I walk around in the woods until I can't see any other people anymore. No gender there, just trees and birds and the smell of moss. This is probably something where I have a bit of an advantage from being somewhat older, but I also have some straight, normie friends whose opinions on queer stuff tend to range from, of course trans people are valid, but saying that gender identity changes your sex is kinda dumb, over, I just don't understand any of this weird stuff, to, if she talks about her girl dick one more time, I'm gonna scream. They do not relate to my constant ruminations on gender identity or my frustration with queer homophobia, but we can hang out and make pizza, play board games, and complain about the general state of the world. And I can even talk about being female without being accused of causing people's suicide. That helps. I think there is worth in the butch identity. I know that it's not the cool thing at the moment, especially if you add woman to butch. It's old-fashioned and not in line with many branches of gender ideology, and maybe people do think I'm a joke, but that's on them. I am female, and I am like this, and that is okay. I do not need to change anything about myself just to be. I do not need to perform nor curate how other people perceive me. While womanhood exists, it will have to make space to include me. There is both revolution and a certain peace in that thought. Things will not stay like this forever, so much is certain. Having followed the discourse, at least peripherally, for quite a while now, things have already changed a lot, rather rapidly, over the last few years, and seeing the multiple contradictions in opinions even within queer spaces, it's highly unlikely that we have somehow now reached a stable equilibrium. Of course, this does not necessarily mean that things will change for the better. Just look at the last few years. But it's also not given that it won't. Maybe we can contribute to that, but I'm definitely sticking around to see what happens. As lonely as it can feel sometimes, especially with a lot of my former role models recently coming out as not really a woman and definitely not an icky-turfy homo lesbian, we are not, in fact, the last two butch women around. There might not be many of us, but butch lesbians are still a thing, both younger, often desisted or detransitioned ones, and older ones. There are lesbians not just surviving, but thriving away from mainstream queer spaces. There are people talking about the dysfunctional dynamics. There are people who are trying to rebuild community. There are people who understand, although it can take a lot of effort to find them. I know how important it is for me to see other butches just exist. So I want to be this person for other people. If I can show even one baby butch that it is possible and totally okay to be like this, that would be worth it. None of this is really new. Homophobia has been around for a long time, and so has been the hatred of butches or masculine female people in general, often even within lesbian spaces. Radical feminism, for example, has some fairly nasty history there. And butch lesbians still existed, whatever they may have called themselves at the time. Yes, the homophobia in the queer community is a particular betrayal, and I don't think I will ever get completely over that particular disappointment. But if hundreds of years of persecution didn't stop people from being gay, neither will queer theory. In many ways, it's not like all the former butch women are truly gone. This doesn't mean that there is no real loss there. There definitely is, of community, shared language, and even shared experiences, because living your life as a trans man or non-binary person is different from existing as a butch woman. But people don't just stop being female and homosexual when their identity changes, and there is still a lot of overlap in experiences, especially when it comes to trans masc butches, FTM butch cuspers, and many non-binary agender lesbians. And while there are currently many people who really hate acknowledging that, there are also people who don't, especially in private. It sucks that talking about this can be such a minefield, and navigating the ever-changing rules regarding approved terminology and ideology can definitely be really stressful, but I still think that it is worth trying to build these bridges. Although I also think it's totally okay to draw back when needed for self-protection. I can't be around surgery talk, and every time I hear an NB say something along the lines of, "I'm not a woman, I'm a human being," I want to scream. When nothing else helps, there is always spite and anger. I am not going to let this homophobic bullshit be the end of me. That at least keeps me to going long enough to go back to the forest and smell some trees and stuff. Hang in there. I really hope things will get easier again soon. But even while things are hard, I still think it's worth it.